I will call the May 14th, 2026 meeting of the TRPA Hearings Officer to order. It's 2 p.m. My name is Marcia Birch, and I'll be serving as the Hearings Officer today. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Have there been any changes?
There have been no changes to the agenda.
All right, then I will go ahead and approve the agenda as it was posted. Item 3 are public interest comments for no action. At this time, members of the public may address the hearings officer on matters within the agency's jurisdiction that are not listed as public hearing items on the agenda. If you wish to comment on a public agenda hearing item, please do so when that item is called. The hearings officer is prohibited by law from taking immediate action on or discussing issues that are not listed on the agenda. So, Jessica, do we have members of the public in the room?
There are some members of the public in the room, so we'll go to them first.
All
So
right,
any
thank you.
wishing to address the hearings officer on items not on the agenda, now is your time. Please stand up and come to the podium. Okay, there are no members of the public in the room coming to the podium, so I will ask online if any member of the public online wishes to make a public interest comment for items not on the agenda. Please raise your hand now by clicking on the raised hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment, Marcia.
All right, thank you, Jessica. I will close the public interest comments for today. Item number 4 is announcement of appeal rights. Any decision of the hearings officer is appealable to the TRPA governing board. The notice of appeal, which can be found on TRPA's website, and associated fees must be filed within 21 days of the hearings officer's decision. All right, and that brings us to our public hearing items. Our first item is item 5A. It's the Sheldra Joy Perry Family Trust Land Capability Challenge, 1920 Westlake Boulevard, Tahoe City, Placer County, California, APN number 084-140-022, TRPA file number LCAP 2025-0350. All right, and I'm assuming this is Julie Roll's item. It is.
Correct. Hi, Julie. Roll for the record, TRPA. And as Marcia said, this is a lane capability challenge. It was reviewed on behalf of TRPA by soils consultant Phil Scholes. Based on his review, staff is recommending a change to the lane capability from class 5 to class 7. And Phil was unfortunately not able to join us today, so he gave me a brief summary of his findings that I'll present to you. So the parcel is mapped as a Tallac gravelly core sandy loam soil type in the 1974 soil survey. Through this lane capability challenge, a site-specific analysis of soil conditions was completed using test pits and soil augers. A test pit in the undisturbed southwest corner of the parcel revealed deep loam to sandy clay loam soil, which lacks a root restricting layer associated with the Tallac soil series. The soils also did not match the Elmira or Gefo soils often found along some lakeshore areas. So since the soil is different from any mapped soils, it's considered an unnamed inclusion, and the lane capability is determined by Table 4 in the lane capability classification of the Lake Tahoe Basin report. So based on all that information, the soil qualifies as a class 7. There's also a backshore area along the lake, which is not being changed by this challenge. And that's all I have. And I will just also say that I have not received any public comment on this item.
All right. Thank you, Julie. The staff report was straightforward, and that summary that Phil provided was also clear. Let's go ahead and open this up for public comment.
Okay, any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item, please come to the podium and we'll call on you. Looks like there's nobody in the room wishing to comment on this item. I'll go to online. Any member of the public online wishing to comment on this item, please raise your hand now by clicking on the raised hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment on this item.
Thank you, Jessica. I will close the public hearing. and I will take action and approve the proposed land capability challenge as it was presented in the staff report. Okay, that brings us to item 5B. This is 2169 Prairie Meadow Road LLC demolition of a historic resource, single-family dwelling, and a construction of a new single-family dwelling, 2169 Prairie Meadow Road, Glenbrook, Nevada, Douglas County, assessor's parcel number 1418-03-801-001, TRPA file number ERSP 2025-1730. And this is Paul Nielsen's item.
Yeah, thanks, Marcia. Just quickly, I will just summarize this project by saying it involves the construction of a new residence on the lake in Glenbrook with an associated guest house, garage. But the reason this project is in front of the hearings officer today is because of a potentially historic structure on the 2-acre property. The structure is referred to as a bathhouse. These have existed and continue to exist on some properties throughout Glenbrook, associated with the Glenbrook companies, sort of development of the area, post-Comstock, as it sort of evolved into a tourist community in the 1950s. So it was a small 500 square foot bathhouse. And the reason hearings officer approval is required is because this project will result in the demolition of that building. And the demolition is allowed by the TRPA rules pursuant to what's called a resource recovery plan. And so these resource recovery plans are developed by qualified professionals, archaeologists who document the history, the setting, the inside and outside of the structure. And these reports are made available to the State Office of Historic Preservation. And so that was done for this project. It's attached in the report. There's a narrative summarizing the significance of the structure. But again, this is the 1950s, 500 square foot. It's in poor condition. I've seen it. And so other than that, it's a standard construction techniques. It's a flat lot. It's a high IPE score, and no other issues were identified.
All right, thank you, Paul. If anyone representing the applicant would like to make a presentation, I'm happy to hear it.
Hi, Ms. Birch. Wyatt Ogilvy in representation of the applicant. We've reviewed Paul's staff summary, findings, and conditions of approval and have no comment. I'm happy to address any questions that you may have, and I'd like to reserve, obviously, the ability to respond to public comments should there be any.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
I did review the staff summary. I also reviewed the resource recovery plan. Paul, were there any public comments received on this?
I've not received any public comment, other than just some initial inquiries after we sent out the notice to surrounding property owners. Just a few clarifying questions from one individual, and have not heard from her since.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll go ahead and open this up to public comment.
Okay, so any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item, please do so now. Come on up to the podium if you'd like to comment. There is nobody standing up to comment on this item, so I'll go online. Any member of the public online wishing to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking on the raised hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Looks like we have one hand raised. Hillary, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Richard Clark. Seated next to me is Hillary Clark. Hillary is the general partner for the partnership that owns the property at 2175 Prairie Meadow Road, the end of the Blister Road. We did receive this notice. This is honestly the first indication of anything having to do with this project that the partnership has received. So we're not quite sure if this is the ultimate body that approves the overall development of the project, or whether that would be handled perhaps by Douglas County.
I do believe that Douglas County will have permitting authority here, but Paul, maybe you could address that.
Yeah, that's correct. Paul Nielsen, TRPA. So basically 2 approvals are required here, in response to the question. The approval today is TRPA's approval, that authorizes, the creation of the residential units, demolition of the historic structure, but a building permit, is required by Douglas County, and so they will, have to obtain that before they actually start construction.
Thank you. I think we would appreciate the applicant engaging with the property owners on Blister Road, Prairie Meadow Road, to discuss how the construction would be managed, because we have concerns about access to our properties during the construction period, as well as other related noise and just general questions about how this would progress.
Yeah, of course. Wyatt, can you sort of acknowledge the request and respond?
Sure. Happy to, Paul. Mr. Clark, my name is Wyatt Ogilvy, and our company is based up in Tahoe City, California, Ogilvy Consulting, and we represent the LLC. The property owner has a project management team, and with them and the general contractor prior to start of construction, we'd be more than happy to engage in dialogue regarding kind of access, construction practices, and how to be a good neighbor. So if you want to either provide Paul with your contacts, the 2 of us can connect, or I'm happy to give you my email address, and you could reach out to me directly offline if you like.
Yeah. Why don't you give me your email address and I'll write it down.
Sure. It's Wyatt, WYATT,
Mm-hmm.
at Ogilvy, OGILV as in Victor, Y, land, LAND, use.com. And our office phone's 530-583-5800.
I apologize. I missed most of that because I couldn't get a pen ready. So,
Okay.
do you want to just give me the email address again?
Sure. It's Wyatt, WYATT, at Ogilvy, OGILV as in Victor, Y, landuse.com.
Okay.
And we'd be happy to engage in that dialogue as prior to heading into construction.
What was the phone number?
It's 530.
530-583-5800.
5800. Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
And then, sure.
We'll let the other property owners on the road know also.
Understood. And I think I have it correct. So your 2 parcels, your property is located 2 parcels to the north of the subject property, not directly adjoining, correct?
That's correct.
Great.
Yes, but we are concerned that they are going to use our property as a turnaround and try and park in our property. I don't want to go into it. This is probably not the appropriate venue.
Sure.
No,
Like
it'll be
as I said, we'd be happy to have dialogue around kind of construction.
I'm just actually surprised no one's contacted us, to be quite honest. But anyway, that's not for the TRPA. Personally, I will tell you, I don't really care about that structure. I mean, it's just a little bathhouse. I mean, do I want a monstrous thing there? Probably not. But I don't personally think it's really historic to Glenbrook.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the applicant's willingness to engage with the neighbors. So Jessica, let's see if there are any additional comments online.
There are no additional hands raised to comment on this item.
Okay, well, thank you for the thorough staff review. I don't have any additional questions. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment and take action. I'll approve the findings contained in the staff summary, including a finding of no significant effect. Approve the project based on the staff summary and record evidence subject to the conditions contained in the draft permit attached to the staff summary. Thank you. And I will move on to the last item on our agenda,
I don't need that. We'll go.
which is item 5C. This is local public health and safety facility, Tahoe Keys Water System Reconstruction and Well Project, 440 Alawai Boulevard, City of South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County, California, assessors parcel numbers 022-210-026 and 510-301-00. And TRPA file number ERSP 2025-1769. And this is, I think it's Ali Borowski's project.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Marcia. So this project is for a new well. Currently, the Tahoe Keys area has 3 wells, and there has been some contamination issues. So they're building a new well and a well house that will go around this new well. Outside the well house, there will also be a small bathroom. And this new well house and bathroom is going on a common area parcel at 440 Alawai Boulevard. The common area parcel has tennis courts, a basketball court, parking, green park-like area. So, this project also includes water line replacement, about 3,400 linear feet of water line replacement, and that's going to be on White Sands Drive, Alawai Boulevard, and Tahoe Keys Boulevard. You can see that represented with the red line there. And the thinner red line, they're both red, I'm realizing that is not very clear, but is the Alawai parcel, the common area parcel, if we're looking at that PowerPoint. So the water line and well project are within Plan Area Statement 102, Tahoe Keys, where the proposed land use local public health and safety facility is identified as a special use and why it is required to go to the hearings officer. This map also shows the area kind of highlighted in yellow is where the new well house will be going. And it also shows one temporary staging area that's proposed that we're going to talk about in a minute. So for noticing of this project, we noticed 3 weeks early opposed to the 2 to give extra time for informing members of the public. And we do have public comment on this item and people here in the room who are going to speak on this project. And so the biggest concern is the temporary staging on Texas Avenue, and that's that blue highlighted area in the south. There will be temporary staging on the Alawai parcel where the well will be going, but that temporary staging will primarily be for the well house, and bathroom. So it is intended that some additional space may be needed for the water lines as they replace those. So those I think are the main things I want to talk about. And the only thing I will add is the blue area, the proposed temporary staging area is the old Tahoe Keys water plant treatment facility location. And that location historically has been an old water plant and somewhat disturbed and owned by the Tahoe Keys, and it is a large parcel or area, I should say.
And
So I
what
think
is that area being used for now?
That's a great question, and I think that's something we're working with the Tahoe Keys with right now. I believe there's an office there and the old water treatment plant. I do have some photos of it and we can look at those. But first, we're gonna see where the water treatment plant will go. And you can see the park-like area. This obviously was in the winter and from street view. So next photo is the temporary staging. There's a turnaround. You can see the sign for the water company there. And then you can also see on the right, the disturbed area that is looking to be restored. With the wood chips there. But we do have Tahoe Keys people here who can speak more to, you know, what is happening at that site.
Okay. Thank you. And so I did review the public comments that we received. So I'll go ahead and hear from the applicant if they have something they'd like to present.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I guess it's afternoon. My name is Dave Peterson. I'm the president of the board for Tahoe Keys Property Owners Association. I appreciate the staff report. We agree with the recommendations. We agree with the draft permit. We don't have any exceptions on the permit requirements. Regarding the project, the only I guess public concerns that we've gotten on this is relative to the Texas Avenue site. So where the construction is ongoing, where the noise is, where the traffic problems are, we haven't had any issues with the people. We had a town hall and really nobody had any problems with it. They realize it's temporary, and when it's done, we're going to have fire flow again, which is kind of important. At the Texas Avenue site, I think I read all the letters as well. And I think the people have kind of blown this out of proportion. What we're talking about is 3,400 feet of pipe. Each section of pipe is 18 feet. They put about 50 on a truck. That means 4 truckloads. This is not, you know, Walmart. This is 4 truckloads. And we'll have some gravel stored there too, but it's a handful of truckloads. So it's pretty minimal impacts. The roads that we're talking about are really no different than anywhere else in South Tahoe. We managed to construct things all over South Tahoe. I know one of the letter writers said, why don't you have it at the South Tahoe PUD site? Well, South Tahoe PUD site is accessed through neighborhoods. You can't get there without driving through a neighborhood. In fact, about half the staff comes off Black Bart, and it's actually narrower than these streets here. And one of their employees was killed on Black Bart last year or the year before. So it's, I mean, that's not a better solution. And that's the nature of South Tahoe. It's a residential access is kind of the way things go. Drive down Keys Boulevard, you're driving down through a residential neighborhood. So anyway, I just say that I think the residents, the letter writers overreacted. We're talking about 4 truckloads of pipe and a few truckloads of gravel. So anyway, any questions for me?
No, thank you
I
for
do-
that. Oh, sorry.
I do have one question. Do we have an estimated time frame for the use of this site as a staging area?
The pipelines are supposed to be completed this construction season, so by October 15th, but we'll be working on it all through this summer and into October. The building is going to go into next year, but the building is going to be, a 1,600 square foot building up by the tennis courts, and that's where that one's going to be staged. So The pipeline should be done by October.
Okay, thank you.
Better.
And Marcia, just for the record, this is Ally again. This project was already reviewed and approved with the city. And they have implemented some conditions about speed limits in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I don't have any additional questions for the applicant at this time. Is there anyone else representing the applicant? If not, then we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment.
Marcia, this is Graham.
Hi,
Can
Graham.
I just, I'd just like to ask a clarifying question too for the record. If Ally knows or the gentleman from the Keys, did the city approve the staging area?
Yes,
Or that?
the city approved the staging area and that's where that speed limit
Okay,
limitations will be located is in this staging area.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. That is clarifying. So let's go ahead and open this up for public comment.
Hey, any member of the public in the room wishing to comment? Please come on up to the podium. Looks like we have at least one public comment.
Thank you so much. My name is Ellen Flynn. I live on Whitney Drive, on the route that is to the water plant. Mr. Peterson wasn't at the town hall. I was. There were people with problems
I
there.
was at the town hall.
Oh, he's
I was there.
You were present? I thought you called it, okay. I was there present. I did raise some concerns. My big concern, and especially with the fact that the city did approve, the planning commission approved the permit for that area, but it is because it was misrepresented as a corporation yard. And what I really want, my big point today is I've lived in the Keys for 14 years, and twice that I've lived there, and more times since I haven't, there have come before the residents, the homeowners, the vote to turn that water plant into a corporation yard. It was voted down 4 times by the residents. It is not and never has been a corporation yard. It was represented as a corporation yard during the planning commission meeting. So of course, the city would say, absolutely use your corporation yard. It's, you know, it's so totally secure, which it is not. However, secure, it's on the end of a dead end street. But my point is that it was misrepresented by the homeowners association as a corporation yard to the city. It is a small little lot that is 90% dirt and is actually going under a cease and desist through your agency to the HOA because they were dumping dirt and not handling it with proper BMPs. This is not important at this time, but I just want to let you know as a resident of this small area, you should know the truth. We're fighting hard to get our streets safe. They're very narrow. The corner, the right angle, these big tractor trailers come through with supplies. They can't even make the turn. They have to back up, go into my neighbor's, almost her driveway to then complete their turn to go do their business at the lot. At the end of the dead end street. We are a community of small families. We have a lot of neighbors who walk our street. It's very beautiful there. It is not a safe place for us to walk when these big rigs are constantly going down our street because we currently have the traffic. And it will be only more so with this project if it is approved. So we plead with you to please allow us to keep the sanctity of our neighborhood, our peace. The impact is horrendous for us. So we really ask that you please reconsider and stick with actually the, you came up with I'm losing my words. I'm gonna stop here. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, do we have any additional comments?
There is one third comment. Carrie, I will get your slides ready. Marcia, this is the individual that had a couple of slides she wanted to present.
Okay.
Over there, is that yours? Yes. Is that your slide?
That's the beginning of the slide. Hi, Terry Jenkins. I'm actually the TKPOA Mount Tlactu Cove Advisor. So I've had a lot of the residents and neighborhood residents come to me with their concerns. And I did submit concerns to our HOA beginning in February when we got the public hearing notice from the city, only like 4 days before. So we weren't able to really go to that hearing. A lot of us were traveling. So that was unfortunate, but today I kind of want to move forward. We want to try to work together with our HOA. My slide, we can go to the next slide. We support the project. It's a good project for safety and fire safety and water flow. But we do have some real serious concerns about using the Texas lot as the secondary staging site. As Ellen mentioned, our area and all the surrounding areas, for them to come, they probably have to come through 15th to Eloise, then through so many different roads and residential areas, all the way around to get to the Texas lot. So many residential things will be affected. We have some ideas for some other sites, and it's very economical and safer. We realize that this is the HOA wants to try to use that space, and that's fine, but it should be for something that's a lot more compatible. We're willing to, you know, we're part of them, so we want that to happen as well, but we want it to be something that is safe and more compatible. We are not a heavy industrial area and should not be. Definitely, it's a quiet, family-oriented residential neighborhood. It's not zoned or suitable for commercial staging. It's zoned R1. There is a special use permit granted in 1971, but that was for the water plant, which is a compatible use for small homes, obviously, because that helped us. And sure, they can use it probably for storage, simple storage. We believe this use would disrupt the neighborhood character, disturb the health, safety, enjoyment of our property, and the general welfare and residents and quality of life. And not just on Texas and Whitney. We don't have the traffic flow route yet, but there's Tahoe Island, 12th Street if they go that way, and Royal, and so many different streets. We have petitions from 55 different homeowners in the area, which I submitted on Monday to the hearing officer. And I have copies of those with me as well, of all the neighbors that are upset. Or no, they're not really upset. They're just very concerned about the safety. It's a quiet neighborhood where everybody's just walking around. We can go ahead to the next slide. So moving forward, what we would prefer to do is work with our HOA and the contractor to try to find a safer site that is not so, you know, residential, that's just safer for this project, that extra staging area. I found one on the Ferguson yard, which was used by South Tahoe Refuse when they did the rollout for all their new garbage cans. It's an excellent site. It's straight shot from 15th to James. Then it's right on the corner. It has two little entrances, paved, gated, doesn't disturb anything. Most of it's industrial. The beginning part might not be. What's good about it too is that it's available all summer long. There is a small cost, but for that cost for a $12 million project, is pennies for safety issues that are involved. I did contact the owner, he's very open to leasing it for the summer. What I like about it too is just that it has those two entrances. It has an entrance where the trucks can unload, and then go out and continue on their way. And if there's backhoes or big trucks, whatever, we've never really had a discussion with our HOA in depth on this, so we didn't know a lot of the details. February is when I started writing them, and April's when we had a town hall. Mr. Peterson was very nice to come over to the house and give me a little bit more information, and I shared some of this with him as well. That was recently, so that was nice to do that. I'm glad to go to the next slide. And so basically, That's pretty much it. We really feel it's unsafe. It's, we weren't even notified of this meeting, actually. So we didn't even receive a notice of our street. Ally was good enough to keep us informed because we've been communicating with her. She's excellent at that. But we did walk our streets and everybody does seem concerned. 52 people and counting, with the concerns that all the route would come through our staging area. And we have copies if anybody wants one. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I don't have any questions for you at this time. Thank you. Are there any additional public comments?
Yes, there is one additional hand raised in the room, sir.
I am.
Oh, there are a few additional hands raised in the room. We'll have the gentleman that's standing come to the podium right now.
Hi, my name is Jeff Williams. Really appreciate TRPA doing this hearing, even though I didn't get notice about it in the mail. I have two things that I want to focus on. The one is what's online was I guess if you call it a study. It was done by, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Venteos. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But they recommended in there twice that the safest place for the staging area was the Tahoe Keys water plant area. Yet the only place that they identified specifically that they researched was the water plant. They didn't recognize any place else that they listed in their recommendation as to other options. And that didn't even consider what was outside of the Keys. Now, at the same time, they might deserve a black mark because the Keys hired them to present this study. So we don't know what they were tasked to do. Maybe they were told to only look at Keys properties. Well, we even contacted the Tahoe Keys Marina folks. They said, well, nobody's contacted us. So I just don't think that that study should be relied upon at all as a good study. I don't know how they can make a recommendation when they haven't researched options like what Terry just mentioned outside the Keys as well as inside the Keys. The other thing I want to mention, the only thing that I've heard today that is against this is it's what's referred to as NIMBY, not in our backyard. Nobody knows what goes on Whitney in Texas, but the people that live there. And there's a lot of surrounding areas that Terry addressed that flow in there. You have people walking their dogs down there, and you have baby strollers, you have lots of kids riding their bikes down there. And it's because it's considered a safe street because it's dead end. So you don't have people unless they're lost that are gonna be going down there and checking things out. So that safety is a real concern. Now, it would have been, I think, appropriate for the Keys to say, well, we recognize your concern that there is a little bit more risk or whatever, but they don't recognize that. All they've told us is basically it's not in our backyard. So they don't even, from my perspective, give us the respect that there is a safety issue. It's going to be less safe than it would be without it being there. I think that's the main thing. So those are the two areas that I wanted to address. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there an additional hand raised in the room here?
Yeah.
Please come on up.
Hi, my name is Catherine Pecos. I'm a teacher and love speaking in front of kids, but not adults. So I live at 2141 Texas Avenue. And I think I'm looking just at the mission statement for TRPA. And it really is to protect Lake Tahoe. And so Corporation Yard, that has been told by Ellen, Jeff is able to represent more of kind of the business side of things. I just want to talk about what happens in my neighborhood. Every single day, I see coyotes in packs. Every single week, I see at least one bear walking. He walks right by my house and goes right into the water next to my house. We have a trail at the end of Texas Avenue. We have a trail at the end of Whitney. That trail is used by children who go to school and come home from school. They don't have to go on the street. They get to use that trail to be able to get to Tahoe Valley Elementary School on their bikes or walking. I am not a person that gets involved in this kind of stuff. I kind of nod and smile. I feel like we've done a lot of nodding and smiling with what's gone on at the end of Texas Avenue. My next door neighbor, because of your regulations, has this insane netting and this big tubing of hay so that he can replace his deck. When all these cubic tons of wood chips got dumped into this area at the end of Texas Avenue, there was never anything put up to protect the water. A mass amount of dust and remnants from this dumping of everything. And yet we have to hold to these regulations, which I'm fine. I'm all about protecting water and the flow of our wildlife that's going on. But it's gotta be a two-way street. The fence is completely falling down. My neighbor got 3 warnings from Tahoe Keys. You gotta repair your fence, you gotta repair your fence. This fence is broken, it's falling everywhere. I don't understand why this is even a consideration when so much right now is already affecting the lagoon, which affects the fish, which affect the osprey, which affect the bald eagles, which affect all the wildlife that fishes in there. Humans set aside, I think what can't speak here today is our wildlife and our water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room? Yes, a couple more hands. They're debating about who's gonna go first.
Very good. Good job. Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity for me to speak today. My name is Alex Goslin. My wife and I just live a few houses down from the proposed staging area. I want to start off by saying that we support the water infrastructure project and what Mr. Peterson's doing. We understand that it's an important project to the community. My concern as somebody who lives in the neighborhood is, and it's not an industrial area. My wife walks our dog in this area every single day. There's a dog park right next door to us that brings in a lot of regular pedestrian traffic through the neighborhood. These families, these children on bikes, dog walkers, people pushing strollers that use these streets constantly, especially during the warmer months. So the proposed staging area sits at the end of a dead-end residential street with only one way in and out. That means repeated trips by these vehicles and delivery trucks would have to travel through our residential streets, which are fairly narrow. And it just was never designed for this type of traffic. These roads are already in really poor condition. There's significant potholes already and just damage throughout the whole area. So I'm just worried that adding this extra traffic with this heavy machinery will accelerate the deterioration and create even just more safety concerns for us. So that's pretty much what I got. Again, I support the project and I support what you're doing. I hope that there could be a better place from what I'm hearing from the neighbors. Maybe the Ferguson yard, maybe these, hopefully just a better place so we could get this done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
One more hand raised or one more? Maybe there's 2.
Okay. It's Randy Flynn. I am First Speaker Ellen's husband. I built the house on Whitney Drive in '91. Lived there ever since. So I have a rich history. Most of which is not pertinent to today, but just to let you know that I've been there a long time. I've watched the changes that are inevitable and welcome, and some of them aren't, but that's progress. The only thing that concerns me today, other than what's already been mentioned, is what seems to be a change in the relationship and the communication between the Keys and residents who might be affected by various decisions they make. That's something that we work toward with Mr. Peterson and the group that's on our streets. And I think I'll let that go at that point. The first time, well, I have a son who's 35. When he was in the 4th grade, he had severe asthma. And the Keys were considering using the area that we're discussing as a corporation yard. And all of the dust and all of the things that happened when you do that and you have all of these vehicles coming in and out, it raises a lot of dust. And I was really concerned about that. And I brought it up. And since then, there's been, as Ellen mentioned, 3 other times, the Keys has really wanted to call it a corporation yard and use it for that purpose. Well, without any recognition of the decisions that it was not a corporation yard, the Keys decided to use it that way anyway. And they've been doing it for quite a while. They store an amazing amount of rolling stock and infrastructure that has to go in and out during the seasons in that yard. And I wish we had a picture of what that looked like. The good news is that inadvertently the TRPA got involved in looking at this property and realizing that they needed to take action. Then they have cease and desist. The Keys, of course, is doing what they've been asked to do. So with that history, it's hard sometimes to trust the Keys to be forthcoming, to follow up with the well-intentioned, it seems, words of, hey, we really want to work with you on, and all of a sudden we're not hearing anything. So please understand that this room has some people in it today who are totally supportive of the water system that's going in. What we're not supportive of is that we're being run over, hoping that we don't recognize, this is my guess, I haven't been told this, having meetings and then other things happen that suggest that the Keys really didn't get our point or just didn't care. So those are the issues we deal with. Regarding the TRPA, I just want to say thank you for taking a look at this. Thank you for considering all of the things that we mentioned today. We are a work together, yes, getting to yes group of people. We don't want problems. We don't want adversarial relationships. We want to get along. We want to be recognized for our concerns. And now, thank God, we are. So I just want to thank you for taking care of your end of all of this. And we hope for a better future.
Thank you.
Right, next hand, please.
Nancy Fagan. We have, thank you for your time. We have 2 lots on Texas, and then our house actually goes to Tahoe Vista. So we will be affected on both directions with these giant trucks. And we don't have normal streets where we live. It's all on uneven ground and the streets are really narrow. So these trucks that do go down, occasionally they go to, they can barely get through. And I just want to stress again, everyone's talked about it, that this is a neighborhood where people own their homes. There are several generations of kids that people walk their dogs there. Our house is like a fishbowl. We see out the front and the back. People walk their dogs constantly, not every once in a while. And then little kids on their bikes are constant every day. Our backyard, we've had trampolines and kids playing in it, and it's a very narrow street. The main thing is we have options. We have the Ferguson yard. We could probably put the pipes also at the location itself. So I think you know, we're not overreacting at all. If 50 some people have signed this agreement, it's, very impactful to our lives. We pay, I know this doesn't matter to you guys, but we pay a ton of money to live in the Keys. And that's part of the advantage, is it's a nice area with not a lot of construction going on. And then I'm just gonna quote here from TRPA Code of Ordinances, chapter 21.2.2. A, let's see, the project pertains to nature, scale, density. B, the project which the use pertains will not be injurious or disturbing to the health, safety, enjoyment of property, or general welfare of persons or property in the neighborhood. Okay, well, there's that. And C, the project with the use pertains will not change the character of the neighborhood or detrimentally affect or alter the purpose of the plan. So, you know, those two things almost shouldn't go past it. And then also, Dave had mentioned, your notes here, Terry.
Oh, I think he mentioned, unless it's changed, 3,400 square feet of pipe, whereas the project description says 6,520 linear feet of pipe. And are there old water mains being dug up and brought to our staging location, as well as all the new products? So it's not really minimal impact. It sounds quite extensive.
And then just, you saw on the map where the well is. Thank you guys for letting me talk a second. Compared to where they're gonna bring the pipes. Oh my gosh, it's a really long ways. And to get to that site is going through neighborhoods with solid, families. People own their homes and they have children. There's bikes and children and also the wildlife that we have everywhere. So I think, you know, the main thing is we have two other choices, and I think they're better choices. So appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else in the room wishing to comment? It looks like we are done with the folks in the room, so let me go online. Any member of the public online wishing to comment, please raise your hand now by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment.
Thank you, Jessica. So I have a few questions for staff, just following up on some of the things that were just covered in the comments. Allie, I'm assuming that there are BMP requirements or, you know, temporary BMP requirements for the staging area itself.
Correct. So yeah, and I want to say, you know, what I've been hearing from everyone is everyone's very supportive of this water treatment, well and pipeline replacement, and I hear that. And I do hear some big concerns about the safety for the community and this old water treatment plant. And so this is a proposed temporary staging area, which means it would only be temporary. I will also say that as part of the permit conditions, it does say another place could be selected, and that will be worked through with the contractor. And that's what the hope of a lot of these people here today is. And depending on where that is selected, they still need to come back to TRPA for final approval with the compliance team and a TRPA planner. And in the permit, there are conditions that require temporary BMPs for all temporary staging areas, no matter where they are, if they're at the Ferguson site or if they're on Texas Avenue. And there's a requirement in the permit for restoring the temporary staging site, so wherever that may be. So if it's at you know, Texas, there's going to be more restoration probably required than if it's in a parking lot at Ferguson Avenue. So those conditions are addressed in the permit.
Okay, because I did hear comments that there'll be impacts to water quality or something along those lines, and I know that our permits, and I see the permit conditions that are going to require those temporary BMPs. Will there be, and I don't know if we know this yet, if the plans are specific enough to, and what type of security. I heard someone say that it's not safe on the site itself. I might have misunderstood that.
Yeah, I think there's some safety
Fence down all around it.
concerns about accessing potentially where this temporary materials will be stored. So, you know, that could be addressed from the contractor with temporary fencing. Or however they see fit to keep it secure. I'm not. You know, temporary construction staging would require temporary fencing, but they could do a more secure temporary fencing.
Okay, I understand. And I typically there is fencing around a staging area like this.
Correct.
Okay, and Ally, you just touched on this, that this is a temporary use. There were some comments suggesting that this was a rezone of the property, or it was changing it to an industrial property or something along those lines, but this is a temporary staging area.
Right, this project is for a new well and water line replacement. And they have proposed to use Texas Avenue for temporary storage of the water line pipes. And I don't know the gentleman's name, but the guy from the Tahoe Keys Owners Association was saying how it sounds like that's only 4 truckloads of pipe that would be coming to this yard, along with some gravel trucks. So it doesn't sound like it would be a ton of trucks. It would just be for one summer, so it would just be temporary. I will let you know that TRPA is working with TKPOA on this site to make sure it's used as permitted. So that, you know, they would need to come in and work with us to do whatever they want to do in the future. But for today, we're just talking about a temporary staging of water line replacement pipes.
Okay, and I just want to essentially make that clear to everyone who's concerned about this, that a decision to allow them to make a temporary use of this staging area would not make a permanent alteration to the uses that are allowed on this site. What's today is the question today is, will this project be approved, and will this be used as a temporary construction staging area for the storage of the pipes and the gravel? And it sounds like, and I don't know, Ally, if you can speak to this in any detail, the county's approval involved some safety analysis and some traffic, it sounds like traffic plans are being prepared.
Yes, so this project already went through the city for review and approval. The city did approve this project. They do have some permit conditions that limit the speed limits to, I think, 20 miles per hour.
Okay.
Is that right?
And who enforces that?
That would be a city permit condition, so the city, we have to work with the city on that.
I see much longer, much more trucks than 4 trucks. The old pipe, the new pipe, gravel. I don't see how they're gonna make that run in 4 trucks. The point is they have other choices. Why affect all of us?
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bring this back to the questions that I have for staff. So, Ally, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, apologize. There was just some background noise. So it sounds to me like my final question for you, Ally, is this: is there anything about the temporary use of this site that is inconsistent with TRPA code?
TRPA approves temporary staging areas with many projects. This is consistent with a lot of public service projects. In fact, I would say almost all public service projects typically require a temporary staging area.
Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge that I hear the concerns of the neighbors. I understand that, you know, there are concerns about the speed limit. That's something that's within the purview of the county under its permit conditions. I also hear that there is a desire that their homeowners association would make different decisions. And maybe take into account, and I don't know whether or not the homeowners association decision makers are taking into account the concerns or not, but it sounds like there's a sense that there's not a good communication or there's not a responsiveness on the part of the HOA board. And that's not something that's within the hearings officer's purview. I also am not able to approve a staging area that isn't proposed, that hasn't been put before me for decision. So while there may be some other locations that neighbors feel would be superior locations, that's something to work out with the homeowners association. It sounds like there is some dialogue. There's the potential for working together. I would encourage the neighbors to continue to work with their HOA. That's really where these decisions could be made, and there is a provision, and I did notice, Ally, that there is a provision in the conditions stating that they could change the staging area if they choose to do that. It just requires review and approval by TRPA staff. So I will go ahead and I will close the public comment period. Again, I have heard your concerns. The hearings officer is limited to approving what is presented for approval. And because it is consistent with our code requirements, the water quality protections will be in place. It is consistent with our requirements. And as far as the use of project being consistent with the neighborhood, and I think there was a comment regarding it being disruptive. This isn't a permanent change. This isn't a permanent use for the neighborhood. So with that, I will go ahead and take action on this item. I will approve the findings contained in attachment A to the staff summary and a finding of no significant environmental effect, and approve the project based on the staff summary, the record evidence, and subject to the conditions contained in the draft permit. And that concludes our meeting. So we'll adjourn.
Thank you, Brenda.